Okay, this video is called How to Have a Good Life, and this comes from some younger viewers have asked me, why don't I talk about what I think helps a person to have a good life? You know, how do you sort of plan it from the beginning to get the most out of your time on this planet and develop yourself as much as you can in good ways? So I'll talk about that. And this has been known since the time of the ancient Greeks, like Socrates, how do we develop ourselves in a good way? And in order to do that, we need to do the things that are good, avoid the things that are bad. In order to do the good things, we need to know what they are. To avoid the bad things, we need to know what they are. So you should study. What is it that gives you a better life? Okay, you want to develop your brain. You need your brain every day of your life. So you want your brain to work as well as possible. Education mostly comes from what you do on your own. School is not really the place for education. School is more of a place for certifications. You get your diploma from grade school, from high school, from college, perhaps from grad school. But remember, in school, they're forcing you to go through some sort of standardized thing. In real life, you're going to have tons of questions, and you seek out the answers by talking to people who know about it with experience or by reading about them. So remember that. You are responsible for educating yourself. Don't expect the schools to do it. Schools are actually not that good at educating people. If possible, go to homeschool rather than public school. Public schools are the absolute worst. They're the bottom of the barrel, the scum of the earth, okay? So if you can, go to a private school or a Catholic school, or homeschool if that's possible for your family. Try to read as much as possible. Find a way to read. Like I said, you've seen my video on the magic bathroom. Have a little table in the bathroom that you could read. Read one page every time you go in there for whatever the reason, to brush your teeth, to void, for number 2, whatever it is, read one page. And pretty soon you'll be reading a lot of books. Create a habit where you can read books or listen to audiobooks so you're constantly doing that. And you'll keep on soaking up this bigger and bigger vocabulary. Try to find at least one smart person you could talk to, maybe 2 or more. You'll learn a lot from conversation with smart people. Ideally, you'd have somebody older, like your parents or your older siblings or something. Choose smart mentors, good people to teach you, good role models to emulate. Read the great novels. I made a video about the top 20 novels of all time. Once you're old enough to read them, you probably won't be capable of understanding them until you're about senior in high school, college age, and then you'll begin to understand them. Then you'll reread them again 10 or more years later. Okay, consider learn L2, a second language. Not a BS second language where you just try to get a grade, but where you actually try to learn the language. Like if I could live my life over again, I would have learned a bunch of languages, and I would have tried to figure out a way to ditch public school. So I could have taught myself Greek, and I could have read the Bible in Greek. I would also have wanted to learn Latin to read the ancient Romans. I would have liked to learn German so I could read Schopenhauer and Goethe and Luther. Probably been and Nietzsche. Okay, I would have liked Italian. Italian is the great language of opera and music. And of course, I would have read Pinocchio in Italian. I would have read Machiavelli in Italian, Guicciardini in Italian, about the life of Michelangelo in Italian, etc. But it's a great language of music. French, not as much to read in French. You could read Voltaire. Voltaire is a genius and he's fun, but he's also a jerk. But French is a very beautiful language. Sounds great too, like the music of Edith Piaf, for example. Spanish is a practical language in America because a lot of people speak Spanish. If I could do high school all over again, I would do XP, which means experimental program. So I would not want to go to regular classes. I think regular classes, the pace is too slow. I could educate myself a lot better just doing stuff on my own. The classes tend to be geared towards the dumbest student in the room versus if you're motivated, you could do that. You could take the AP classes. They're not as big a deal as people think they are. They're more of the same, so to speak. I would want to read in depth on things that I was interested in. If I was young and planning a career, I would try to do something that you could do away from a city. I think the cities are only going to get worse. And being able to work from any location, like if you're a computer programmer, website designer, a writer, an artist, you could do those things. Like a painter, you paint beautiful paintings. You could do those things from anywhere and then just send the information over the internet. And I think that would be preferable. That would enable you to live in a rural location. I believe that it will be advantageous to live as rural as possible. I think the cities are just going to keep getting worse, unfortunately. Never do anything that harms your health or your brain. Never smoke tobacco or MJ. Never drink alcohol. Alcohol's for losers. It just causes brain damage. We're going to get stoned out of our minds. That's stupidity. The best amount of alcohol is zero, none. Never take stimulants. I recommend zero caffeine, zero Ritalin, zero any other stimulant. All these drugs are bad. If anybody ever offers you a drug in a party, always say no and then get out of there as fast as you can. Avoid all drugs as much as possible. There might be certain exceptions for medical problems, but in general, most drugs are just poisons. They're not going to help you. In general, it's best to avoid public events. Most of them are stupid. Things like one rock concert, you can go deaf. Okay, I knew an audiologist, and he said that was a common thing. A lot of people went deaf from going to rock concerts. Pretty stupid. Big public events can turn into mob scenes. Learn to be more of a avoid those types of things is for the best. Some books you probably should read when you're ready to deal with the real world. 48 Rules of Power by Robert Greene is a good book. He's a little bit of a jerk, but he's a smart guy, and his book is pretty accurate about how people behave. I've dealt with a lot of power players in all kinds of corporate situations, and I can tell you that's a pretty accurate book. The other good book on Office Smarts is by Don Steele. It's called Office Smarts, What They Will Never Tell You, and how people actually behave. You can read Machiavelli as well. You'll see that the way people talk and the way they actually behave are not exactly the same thing, and it's good to recognize, go by what people do more than by what they say. You want to learn how to write well so you can express yourself and also so you can defend yourself. When people mess with you, being able to write and to argue back and debate, that helps protect you from being abused and from being turned into a chump. The best books for learning how to write: Romantic Manifesto by Ayn Rand, that gets you to understand literature and novels. The Art of Literature by Schopenhauer gets you to understand nonfiction writing as well as fiction writing. And then I wrote an extensive book on how to write called Rhyme, Rhetoric, and Logic. That's a big magnum opus, like a PhD in writing techniques and methods. So if you want to learn, that'll enable you to have the skills to fight back when somebody messes with you. You'll be able to write your own letters and have a very high level of literacy to navigate that part of life. Plus, it's a lot of enjoyment. I get great pleasure from listening to the great novels and books. You just develop your mind, and it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable part of life. Like Aristotle had said, the greatest of all pleasures is contemplation and thinking, because unlike the other pleasures, it does not wax and wane. Contemplation and thinking is most godlike, and therefore philosophers are the most godlike men. Therefore, philosophers are the best men. That's what Aristotle says. And by the way, that's pretty common that some ancient great thinker will say whatever they do is the best thing. Like Percy Bysshe Shelley thought that poets should rule the world. Okay, the best hobby, I think, is drawing. Besides reading all the time. Reading is so natural, I don't even consider it a hobby. I consider that for everyone. That's not optional. For best hobby, I'd say drawing, because you can connect your drawing to whatever you do. If you want to be an architect, you connect it to that. If you want to be a writer, you'll put pictures that you illustrate in your books. Whatever you do, drawing is a very valuable thing, and it gets you to observe things in a more objective way. And it'll also push you towards Christianity. You're going to see that Christianity is the best artists, painters, sculptors, writers, especially if you're painting, like 99+% of the best art in the world comes from the Christian tradition. All that stuff about multiculturalism is nonsense. Other cultures are not equal to Christianity. When it comes to art, they're not even in the same ballpark for Christianity for production of painting and drawing and music and architecture and literature. They're just not. Okay? That's just a way to gaslight people into pushing towards eventual slavery, so don't fall for that. In general, modernism is bad. I'll come back to it a little later. Oh, actually, I'm already on here. You want to learn how to have some survival skills. You want to learn how to grow food. That's a very valuable thing to know. You can grow it indoors with hydroponic gardens. You should know how to purify water. Consider learning how to raise chickens. They're a good backup of food. Yes, I'm 100% vegan, and I will only eat 100% vegan food. However, I do want people to have chickens and cattle and dairy available in the world as a backup supply of food, because don't kid yourself. There's a lot of talk about starvation, and somebody who knows how to grow food or has chickens or a milk cow or whatever, they're going to do better. If you read about the history of the world, different starvations and difficult times, the people who were rural and could either eat plant foods or animal foods that they had available on their farms, they were much more likely to survive a difficult time and a difficult economy. learn how to hunt. In general, you want to avoid modernism. Most modernism is just a lie. It's BS that's going to control people and eventually wants to enslave them. Do not be impressed by it. Do not be impressed by the great modernists who they claim are friends of mankind, that they're supposed to help you, because a lot of these modern things, they get talked about like they're so wonderful, like the cell phone. Is the cell phone really so wonderful you can't turn it off? Why? Because it's tracking you, okay? It's not so wonderful. It's not necessarily your friend at all, okay? Next thing I would say is choose activities that last for life. Like when you choose a sport to play in high school, the best sport is tennis because you can play it your whole life. You can play with men or women, so that's all good. The best musical instruments are piano and guitar. You can enjoy them for your whole life, and they're beautiful, okay? Christian music is by far the best music in the world. There's nothing even close. I've made a whole bunch of videos about it. It's magnificent. The more you learn about it, the more you will like it. Okay, other extracurricular activities when you're high school age, for example, being on the debate team is valuable. Learning how to debate a topic and all the different logical fallacies and debate techniques, that will be valuable. You're going to be discussing things, arguing with people, negotiating things the rest of your life. You want to be good at it. JETS means Junior Engineering and Technical Society. That's a good thing to know, okay? Spanish club could be good if you do conversation. You don't learn a language by grammar. You learn a language by communicating with it, reading with it, and talking to people, and writing in it. Avoid anything that causes head trauma. I don't recommend any sport that's going to lead to head trauma. And I don't recommend any sport where you're going to have toxic chemical exposures. I think swimming is stupid because you keep inhaling all that chlorine while you're swimming in those pools. I think golf is becoming stupid because you keep inhaling all the crap they spray on the golf course. So I would have said in the past golf might not be so bad, but there's just too much crap sprayed on the grass, so I think it's a bad idea. Okay. Next is you need to get along with people, especially your family, but you got to get along with everybody as much as you can. If it doesn't come if some people it comes naturally for them, they just got these likable, warm personalities. If it doesn't come naturally for you, at a minimum, read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That gets you in the ballpark. And then there's other books like body language books. Okay, for understanding women, you could read the other things, male-female differences and all that. That's a topic for a future time. Try to seek win-win situations. You want to try to have the attitude that anybody who deals with you will be glad they met you, will have a positive interaction with you. A lot of interactions are just brief and transactional, but you want to be a man of your word, be a reliable person, be good, do what's right when no one's around and watching you. Over time, this will make you a better person, a more high-value person, somebody people will want to work with, want to deal with. And that's good. So you want to behave in a way that people will be glad they met you. You want to maintain your network of friends from grade school and high school so they can help you with the chores of life. Find out if one of your buddies is a plumber and then only give work to him. Find out if one of your buddies knows air conditioner. Have them take care of your air conditioner. Find out if your friends are mechanics and have them guide you on what car to buy and how to manage your car. Okay, you don't want to be stuck going to the dealer because car dealers are often dishonest and they rip you off, or they'll even damage your car so they can get more money out of it. They're constantly doing things like that. So you want to be you want to avoid dealing with car dealers if you can. Okay, and this whole idea of electronic cars sounds like more modernism BS. Somebody can take it over with a remote control, give you tickets that they can monitor your car in the speed zones. That all sounds bad. In general, things that centralize control are bad. Things that let people be free, living more rural, are good. Like Thomas Jefferson said, he wanted USA to be more of a family farm type of nation than a big city nation, and Thomas Jefferson was right about that. Okay, hang around with people who are nice and who are trying to improve themselves. Most people are kind of polite and pleasant, but they're kind of lazy and they don't really have any ambition. So, be nice to them, get along with them, but you don't want to be like them. You want to be driving to improve yourself in whatever way you think is appropriate at the time, but you want to push yourself. And so try to find other people that are trying to push themselves to develop, and you'll both develop together. You'll notice that some people just don't like you. No matter what you do, some people will not like you. Okay, so the best thing to do is usually just avoid them. They're not going to change. Don't waste your energy trying to change them. People seldom change. So learn not to waste your time and avoid them. Okay, Some people really are jerks, and don't try to fix them. If somebody's a jerk, just avoid them, because you're not going to be able to fix them, and they're going to just drag you into their nonsense. And get away from them as fast as you can, rather than trying to waste time. Have an attitude of gratitude. There's a lot of things. You're always going to be sort of half screwed and half lucky. So be grateful for your half luck, and don't make too big of a fuss about being half screwed in life. A lot of things, having kids is a great joy of life. I'd recommend you have children. Have as many as you can. I wish I had more kids. I consider that one of my mistakes in life. I didn't have more kids. Don't listen to the gaslight BS where they try to tell you career is more important than kids. No, kids are more important, especially for a woman. She's got a biological clock, wants to get going with that before she's 35 years of age. So having kids is a great joy of life. Be careful about marriage. Men get ripped off big time in divorce. So figure out how you're going to do it. You don't have to get married to have kids. Obviously, traditionally, it was better to get married, but nowadays marriage is so unfair. The divorce system is so aggressive and so completely unfair to the man that it doesn't really make sense for men to get married. There's some exceptions to that, and I would even consider getting remarried under some circumstances, but the woman would have to be pretty special. And if you do have kids with a woman, you're obligated to support her, and help her in every way you can, and the kids. And don't get me wrong, my parents were married and super happy, but you do have to be very careful who you marry. You want to date the girl for a while and make sure that you got long-term things in common, because otherwise divorce is pretty bad. Okay, but people who are happily married, I think that's the best thing you can have, but that's hard to achieve. And usually divorces are filed by women, about 80% of them. Figure out your strengths and weaknesses. Try to figure out what your purpose is in life. If you can, this will become more clear as you get older. Like for me, example, initially I thought I was going to be an athlete. I got injured. I was no longer a wrestler. Then I figured I'm going to be some type of great doctor or scientist, but I didn't know how to specify it. Then I did conventional medicine. Thought I was going to be this great surgeon, but I learned that they really only keep you stuck within narrow boundaries, and I got bored of it. And then I became a brain doctor. And then I realized that nutrition and toxicology were sort of the big wide open areas, the big wide open frontier, and that all the internal medicine subspecialty books were stupid and wrong. So that kind of became a career mission for me to rewrite those books, and I've done so. I fulfilled my destiny, and it made me happy because I had a good purpose and I fulfilled it. And I also see Western civilization being destroyed, so I sort of teach people about it, to keep alive the great knowledge that's been obtained. It's the best. Multiculturalism is nonsense. There's nothing remotely comparable to Western civilization. Most of the great achievements of the world have come from Western civilization. Some has come from other civilizations, but not much by comparison. If you want to look at art, if you want to look at science, if you want to look at literature, that's just a fact. Okay, and you take the same group of people and you convert them to Christianity, and all of a sudden they start achieving more. Classic example, look at Dinesh D'Souza, look at Vishal Mangalwadi. Okay. Let's see. Figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. Develop a purpose. And when you pursue your goals of trying to become great at something, that just builds you up. And do something that's good, and then you put your energy into it, and then you will like yourself. You'll be a happier person. And the fact that you're a happier person who's developed themselves more, you'll attract other sort of people that are working hard to develop themselves, and you'll enjoy each other's company. That's good. It will energize you. My book, Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes, you can hear the best words ever written or spoken, and so know what the sort of smartest people, most creative people have said and done. And it's a good, fast way to educate yourself. I remember most of the great writers, philosophers, thinkers by their best quotes. Consider the religion of Christianity. It's by far the most creative people in the world, like from the Bible. God the Creator created Adam, and because we're created in His image, we too can be creators. It's very common with the greatest achievers like Michelangelo in art, the greatest artist of all time, Bach in music, the greatest musician of all time, composer of all time, along with the other ones, Handel, Mozart, Beethoven, for example. Okay, you need to learn how to make money and keep money. So a good book to start with is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Kiyosaki. The book Atlas Shrugged is also good to help you get an understanding of things. The book The Light in the Cave by Arthur Herman is also a really good book. The book about the stock market. I think Liar's Poker is a good book on the stock market. And as you start reading in these areas, you'll learn about Austrian economics. You'll learn about capitalism. You'll realize also that laissez-faire capitalism is the only economic system that works. Everything else is BS. This will lead you to other books on the subject, and you want to be able to manage your money. Okay, keep yourself healthy. Get your sunshine, get your sleep, get your exercise, manage your stress, maintain friendships, learn the low-fat vegan diet with no oil. Religious people are healthier. So anyways, that's a quick overview. I hope that was helpful, especially, like I said, for younger persons to sort of focus on how do you plan a life. Okay, so I hope that was helpful to you.